six-figure salary isn't what builds wealth. A specific, boring sequence of decisions does, and $60,000 earners who follow it end up richer than doctors who don't. A 28-year-old warehouse supervisor in Ohio makes $61,000 a year. A 31-year-old dentist in the same city makes $210,000. 10 years from now, the warehouse supervisor has a higher net worth. Not slightly higher? More than double. The data on this isn't rare. It's not an outlier story, picked to sound inspiring. It shows up in Federal Reserve household surveys, in retirement account data from major fund managers, in study after study on income versus wealth. What the official retirement planning narrative never mentions is that income and wealth are almost unrelated once you cross $60,000 a year. The only thing that predicts who gets rich is a sequence, a specific order of 4 decisions. Most people do them in the wrong order or skip one entirely. But to understand why the sequence matters more than the salary, we need to look at what actually happens to a dollar the moment it lands in a $60,000 earner's bank account. Here's who this actually applies to. Not day traders. Not people with rich parents. Ordinary W-2 employees earning between $55,000 and $70,000 a year. Teachers, nurses, warehouse leads, junior software testers, electricians. In the United States alone, that's tens of millions of households, and most of them are told the same 3 pieces of advice. Build an emergency fund, pay off debt, then invest whatever's left. The stakes are simple. At this income level, the difference between retiring with $400,000 and retiring with $2.1 million isn't the job. It isn't a side hustle. It's 4 decisions, made in the right order, starting in your 20s or 30s instead of your 40s. Most financial content skips straight to just invest in index funds, as if that's the whole answer. It isn't. The order those decisions happen in changes the outcome by hundreds of thousands of dollars, and almost nobody sits down and explains why order matters more than amount. On paper, this looks like ordinary, responsible money management. Everything seemed like common sense advice. Until the compounding math changed the equation completely. The first hidden fact: most $60,000 earners lose their best investing years to a decision that feels responsible, paying off a low-interest loan before investing anything at all. It sounds disciplined. It sounds like the mature, cautious choice, the one a financial advisor would nod along to. But the math tells a completely different story. Picture the scene. A 26-year-old has an extra $300 a month to work with. Option 1, throw it at a student loan sitting at 4% interest and pay it off 2 years faster. Option 2, redirect that same $300 into a retirement account instead, where it captures an employer match immediately and then compounds for decades. Long-term investor data from major retirement account providers shows the second person, on average, ends up with well over $100,000 more by retirement, not because they were smarter with money, because they didn't let a low-interest debt block the 2 years where compounding does the most damage in a good way at the very start of the curve. Slow down. But here is where the story takes a darker turn. Even the group that understood this still made a second mistake, one that quietly costs even more than the first. The second hidden fact, and this is where the real pattern shows up. The employer match is the single most underclaimed benefit in personal finance. A significant share of eligible employees, commonly cited around 1 in 5 in National Retirement Savings research, don't contribute enough to get their full company match. At a $60,000 salary with a typical 50% match on the first 6% of contributions, that's real money left on the table. Often somewhere between $1,500 and $1,800 a year, walked away from permanently every single year it happens. Build. Ask yourself this. If free money is sitting right there in every paycheck, why does it get ignored so often? The answer isn't laziness, it's sequencing. People try to build a full 6-month emergency fund first, then pay down every debt, then finally think about retirement contributions. And by the time they get there, years have already passed. The forgotten figure in this story isn't a person. It's the order of operations itself. Emergency fund, minimum debt payments, employer match, then everything else. Stay with me, because what comes next is the part that actually determines whether all of this adds up to $400,000 or $2 million. Here's the core truth. For a $60,000 earner, the optimal sequence is 4 steps, done in this exact order, no exceptions. Step 1, build a small starter emergency fund of around $1,000. Nothing more, just enough to stop a flat tire or a broken laptop from turning into credit card debt. Step 2, capture the full employer retirement match immediately before anything else. That's an instant 50 to 100% return on the money contributed, something no stock market anywhere has ever guaranteed. Step 3, pay off any debt carrying an interest rate above roughly 7%, because above that threshold, a guaranteed debt payoff beats a merely probable market return. Step 4, everything left over goes into a low-cost, diversified index fund, automated, untouched, ignored for decades at a time. Slow down. The world was told that getting rich required a high income. The reality was that getting rich required a repeatable sequence, followed automatically, for long enough that compounding did the heavy lifting instead of willpower. Run that exact sequence on a $60,000 salary, with even a modest 10 to 15% savings rate, and standard long-range retirement projections show a 7-figure outcome within 25 to 30 years, not from a windfall, not from a lucky stock pick. From order. For most people, this stayed invisible, not because it was classified information, because nobody ever explained the sequence out loud in the right order in one place. This isn't a someday story about retirement decades from now. Look at what's happening right now. Wage growth in the $55,000 to $70,000 income bracket has started outpacing inflation for stretches in recent years, which means this is exactly the window where the sequence does the most work, while contributions are still cheap relative to income. Pause. The practical takeaway is simple, and it takes about 2 minutes. If you get one thing right this month, make it this. Pull up your last paycheck stub or benefits portal, find your employer's retirement match percentage, and confirm you're contributing at least that much. That single check either confirms you're already capturing free money every pay period, or it shows you exactly what's quietly being left on the table. Most people will never sit down and calculate the actual order for their own numbers. Now you can